So I'm going to make a model, and we'll call it article.dart. And this will now be our third package that we're using, which is called freezed. So in order to use this, we're going to import freezed annotation, and that'll allow us to actually put freezed here to decorate something. And we're going to decorate a class. We're going to call this article. Now this following syntax is a little bit confusing, and I will tell you straight up, I do not have this memorized. I always am looking it up from other projects or other files in my code base or just the docs for freeze. But essentially, we are going to be extending it or mixing it with this mixin called article that doesn't exist, but it will be generated when we run our build runner. So we'll start with that. And then we're going to want a line, and we're going to then put factory article. And in here, we do all of our sort of like required fields. So if we look back at this, I don't care about all of this for the purpose of this application. You could, of course, map every single one of these things that you see, but we only care about a few things. One of them is a title called, that's a string. So we'll just do that. And what's nice is title, this is the right way to do in Dart. It wouldn't be, like title or something like that. So we can just do it just like this. They map, one-to-one. There's no changes there, which is nice. Similar, we're also going to want extract. So extract is somewhere in here, and that is basically that sort of like summary of the article in just one sentence or so. Then I want to have something called thumbnail, but I'm not sure. This could be null. So we're going to mark it like this. And we're also going to want something called URL, which this won't ever be null. So we won't mark it like that. Now, here's some strange things. I'll come back to it, but let's finish this off. So then we have to just do article, which will be generated. And then we create a factory, a from JSON factory. And this will allow it to automatically create the from JSON data when we pass it in. One of the huge advantages of freezed. So I have this, I've saved, I still have these errors. In order to solve this, I need to run my build runner. So there's a few ways I could do it. I'm just going to go back to my main directory, and I can run the command for it. However, and if you look up build runner or freezed or riverpod or anything, that command's in all the documentation. However, I have this really nice VS Code plugin that lets me sort of just run it right here. So I should see my project come up here, and I can actually just click the play button here, and this will run it. One thing I missed, we do also have to say this is part of another file. So I actually have to go part article.freezed.dart. And for the JSON part, we actually it's going to be generating a second file that's going to be article.g.dart. So I will save this, and we will run that again. Please note that in my haste, I forgot the D here, and it didn't work, but I added it in and ran it again, and we have it, article.freeze.dart. So you'll see these are actually not complaining anymore, and in fact, I can click on these and see the generated code. So freeze is generating all this yucky stuff for us that we would never want to write, and it's all good. Now, here's something I want to address, and we might as well do it right now. There's actually no field called thumbnail. Well, there is. But thumbnail actually has, it's a map that's coming back, a dictionary, basically, an object if you're talking about JavaScript. So if we were just to parse this and actually get it, it would fail because it's not a string, it's something else. So how can we fix that in freeze? So we can actually do JSON key here and decorate these things with some extra parameters. Now we will have this complaint, and in the docs, there's a couple, you can fix this globally in your project, but I'm just gonna do it in this one spot. So we can just do that just to get rid of the invalid annotation target. There's a good explanation on their docs about why that happens. But what we can do is we can actually make a toJSON function to actually normalize this to the way that we want it. And we have to create a top level function, and we will just call this thumbnail to JSON. And in here, we need to say what will actually come in from our source. So here it would be actually a map of string dynamic, and we'll just call it value. And then we have to return how we want to parse it. And in this case, we would return value, And all I care about is source right here. So this will then, take this big object in and only return the part I care about and store it essentially here. And all we do here is pass this. Now we're not passing it with the parameters like this. We're just passing it a reference to that function. So that's good. Now, similarly, URL also isn't the same way. It's actually content URLs, desktop, and then page that we want. So I'll just copy this because it's kind of similar. And we'll call this URL to JSON. And let's still do value, but instead of this, it will be content URLs and then page, if I'm not mistaken. Nope, then, sorry, content URLs. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I did this wrong. We want to do page and then desktop to get the desktop URL. Now, if you wanted the mobile URL, you can do this differently. And of course, I did it wrong again. Desktop, page, my mistakes. And the reason we're not doing content URLs is because that's actually what we're going to be passing in here. So in order to do that, to tell basically, hey, I want to call my thing URL, but the service that we're going to be working with is calling it something else, we can go name, JSON key, name, and actually pass in content URLs. So it will grab that and then run it through here, as long as we also have our to JSON of URL to JSON. And I also just made a complete brain fart here. These are actually, we don't care about going to JSON. We want to be going from JSON. So we'll just rename those to those. We will rename them here. And then instead of to JSON, we want this to be from JSON because we're getting it from JSON, not to JSON. Now this still works. You can do it to, say you wanted to save back to the server in another application. You can override the to JSON and the from JSON completely separately, and it's all good, and it will turn it back to that name. So that's also a really nice thing about Freeze, especially if you work with a non-JavaScript or non-Dart based API that's sending things back, like Python, for instance. Generally, you'll get keys and stuff that are snake case instead of camel case, and you don't want to use this in Dart. You want to, just make it like something simple that's camel case. Okay, so there's our article. Now we've made some changes, so we will regenerate this. But while that's regenerating, we will go back to our wiki service. And in this case, instead of returning dynamic, we're actually going to return an article. So in the case that there's an error, we're just going to return left and pass that error right through. So we're basically taking the same error here and passing it right through. But in the case that it worked, we are going to be taking our article, and we can go article.fromJSON and now pass in that JSON there. Now, we don't want to just return this, right? We actually need to wrap it in right. That's what that error is telling us. And if I do this and save, it should look a bit cleaner. So we're going to call this, it's going to do this, it's going to go like this. If everything was good, it's going to then convert it to JSON and return this from our service. There we have it. Okay, next up is our providers. So, so far we've talked about DO, then fpdart, then freezed. The next package in the list is riverpod. So to start this off, what we're going to do is we are going to wrap our widget in a provider scope, just our root provider scope, which does not seem to be importing. So I just typed it out manually because it wasn't getting the autocomplete. Sometimes that happens. I don't know how to blame Dart or VS Code, but do that. So we have to wrap this in here because we're going to want to have access to our provider, basically our global scope within the whole app. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll go to providers, and we're going to make a new provider called hello provider .dart. And here, we're going to do another cool code generation thing. So in order to do this, we are going to import riverpod annotation. That way we can use this lovely riverpod syntax here, decorator. And we're going to be creating a provider that will essentially work with that endpoint that we just made. So it still is also going to return a future of either string or article, similar to, and if I open it up, similar to this. So we will also have to import fpdart here. And we're just going to call this hello. And we're going to pass in something called hello ref. Now this doesn't exist yet, but our generator is going to make that for us. And in here, we're going to make a reference to our wiki service by just going wiki service equals wiki service. So we're just instantiating an instance of this. And then we're going to return wiki service dot retrieve random article. Now notice, even though there's a future, I'm not actually marking it as async, but I am returning an asynchronous function, so it still conforms and works. So let's save this file. And before I forget, we need to say part of hello provider. So the same file name we have, but then we do .g.dart. And let's generate that file. Okay, so we now have this provider here, and this got generated in this, again, ugly code that we never should touch or even look at. And so then we have a way to access this from our widget tree. So let's get that figured out next. So I'm going to go to our hello container, and what we can do inside here is actually get access to that data. So I can go data equals, and we do ref.watch. Now I don't have access to ref, which is a problem, but instead of using a stateless widget in riverpod, we can change this to a consumer widget. And now we have a second build parameter, which is widget ref, and that's the ref that we can watch. And here we actually want to watch our hello provider. Hello provider. Now, hello provider, like we never called anything hello provider. This was actually auto-generated based on this name here. So because we just called it hello, it became hello provider. If we would have called this hello provider, we would have had hello provider provider, which we don't really want. So there we go, hello provider. So we're going to watch this. And what is this data? Is it, we would probably think, if we look at this again, it's going to be a future either string article, but that's not actually the case. This is actually a async value of, and then wrapped in this and this and this. So this isn't a future now. This is something that can be in multiple states at once. So what we can actually do is go data.when and essentially handle the three different cases. So the first case might be that it's still loading. And in this case, we'll just return a circular progress indicator. And I'm actually going to wrap it in a center as well. And we'll add a const. So when it's loading, yeah, we'll show that. Another thing could go wrong, there could be an error outside of like the normal error boundaries that we defined in fpdart. And in this case, there's a parameter for error, and there's a parameter for the stack trace, which we can choose to use. But in the case of UI, we never really care about the stack trace. We're not going to show our user that, so I'll just make it an underscore. And in here, we might return something, pretty simple, just a center with that error right there. But we have to convert this to a string. Now, the real fun of it is we want to, maybe we'll actually get data back. In a perfect world, hopefully we do. And in this case, we'll have one parameter, which is actually the result itself. Now, this could still be a string or an article, right? So we're going to do something interesting in here that we've kind of done before. We're going to return result.fold and actually handle the two different options. So left, we know that that means it's an error. And here, maybe we actually do the exact same thing here. And in this case, we don't need to do the toString because it already is a string. As you'll see here, it's still a string. Now, in the case here, we can call this article. We know it's an article. We're good. And here we might return, something that represents an article. And for now, let's just do article.title. Okay, so we've written a bunch of code, and we haven't really looked back at our application, which is something I have a lot of fun doing sometimes, is just write a whole bunch of stuff. Now, we are going to see an error right now, likely because of provider scope and stuff. So yeah, no provider scope found. And that's simple because we just need to actually rebuild it. So I can start. And there we have a title here. Now, if I rebuild the application again, we should get another random article. And you saw that loading progress bar really quickly. That's pretty cool. So our stuff's working, and most of the work is done. Let's just add a couple things here to make this a little bit prettier. And actually, I don't really need that. And let's just step through this before we get to the real, what I'd say that, I guess, the fun part of this application. How is this a hello world application? Well, you'll see. So let's just step through this all. Main.dart. So we've wrapped our thing in a provider scope. And of course, we are then we have our simple material app, and we're going out to our hello screen. Our hello screen, just a basic widget with a scaffold, which ultimately has our hello container. The hello container is watching our hello provider. So this is the first time it's being like, I need data from somewhere. And with riverpod providers, it's cool because we didn't have to instantiate this or anything. As soon as it gets watched or read, it's going to auto instantiate. And then it actually will auto dispose when it's no longer being watched. So it's really nice. So if we look at our hello provider, this is essentially just a function that's going to use our wiki service to get a random article. And again, our wiki service random article function is really just calling this path on this URL, getting the data, and assuming nothing went wrong in the process, taking our article, which is made in freezed, and passing that JSON in and returning it as an actual type safe object. So that's everything that's basically happening. And then we're just watching through these things. And as soon as there actually is a result, like the network request finished successfully, we make sure that there isn't an error that we've, injected into the process. And in the case that there's not, we are just returning text of the article title. Okay, that's what's happening. Let's make this, let's actually add the hello world part of this application. So I'm going to make a new component here. And we will call it hello text.dart. And here we'll do another stateless component, stateless widget, and we'll call it hello text. And let's just return text. And let's just say hello world. And instead of returning this, we're going to return that help text. Now, I do want to require something to be passed in here, and of course, what we want to actually pass in is an article. So let's just call article, and we'll make a required this.article, so that this requires us to actually pass in the article, like that. So if I save all this, look, it actually says hello world now. Are we done? No, we're not done. That was a joke. We're going to actually do something with this data. We're not just doing this whole thing just to be like, okay, and then it says hello world. Although that would have been pretty funny. Okay, so what do we actually want to do in here? Well, ultimately what I want to do is I want to take the excerpt of the article and see if we can find the words hello world inside of it. Now, I don't mean like, obviously, if you found an article for hello world, it would probably exist. But what I really mean is there's going to be this, paragraph of, lorem ipsum text, random text, whatever. And I want to kind of search through it and find the first H, okay? And then find the E, then find the L, O, to basically get hello world and build it. Meaning sometimes an article might not have that. Sometimes it will, but that's basically what we're going to do. So for this, I want to create a utility function. And this is part of hello. So I'm going to put the utility right in the hello folder, utils.dart. And we're going to make a new function, and it's going to return a string, and we're going to call it needle from haystack, because we're searching for a specific needle in a haystack. And we're going to allow passing in a needle. In this case, will be hello world, but we'll make it, configurable. And then the haystack, which in this case would be the article excerpt. Okay, so for this, this is a little bit of like fun, complicated Dart programming stuff, like stuff you'd see maybe in like one of those job interviews, is that what they call them? And what we're going to do is we're going to track something called our haystack count. So it's going to be a map that is going to be tracking a certain letter in our needle, basically, as well as how many it's found. And it's going to just start like this, but we will be going through it. And now we want to have a for loop. So we're going to have for char in haystack. So we'll take our haystack and we'll actually split it on just an empty string like that. So that'll actually break it into each character. And within this loop, we're going to take our haystack count char, and we are going to then set it to, if it's the first time, we're going to set it to 1, but otherwise it's going to increment it. Now, a good way to do that is we can actually go haystack count char, fall back to 0 if it doesn't find it. So we're basically looking in here for that character. If it doesn't find it, we're going to do 0, but then at the very end, we're going to add 1. So if it finds something, maybe it found 7, it'll become 8. But if it didn't find anything, it will be 0, but then become 1. So that's how we're just going to do that. And I'm going to start building a response here. So we'll call it response just equals this. Then we're going to loop through our needle. And we'll do the same thing, just split on empty characters. And what we want to do is check our haystack count. So if haystack count at that char does not equal null, and we also want to check if haystack count at that char is greater than 0, just in case. Then we can take the response plus equals char. Then we need to take our haystack count char and actually remove 1 from haystack count at that char. We know it's not null at this point, minus 1. Because we don't want to be able to reuse letters. So once we found something, we're pulling it back out of this count. And that's why we have to have this greater than 0 sort of thing here, because although it won't be 0 at this first loop, it could, when it gets to the second L, for instance, be back to 0. Okay, so then we have this response, and then we just return it, return response. So there's our awesome needle and needle from a haystack. Now, in here, what I want to do is actually get that result back. So I'm just going to call it result, and we're going to do a needle from haystack, import it, and our needle is going to be hello world. However, because we're over engineering this, let's make this a constant of our application. So right inside hello, I'm going to make another file called constants.dart, and we're going to make a constant called, what do I want to call this? Target value. And it's going to be equal to hello world. Okay, now we do get this error or this warning. I like having my constants as uppercase, especially when they're kind of stored in its own file. It looks nice, it reads nice, it makes my code feel like, oh, that's a constant. It's not just some random variable. Cool. So I just ignore that rule there. So now for our needle, instead of that, we can actually put this target value. Our haystack, however, is going to be our article.extract, as we called it. And then what's cool is we're going to display some data here. So we're going to return a column, first of all. And we'll just make sure its main axis size is main axis size.min. And in our children, what are we going to put in here? We'll start by putting some text. And here we're going to use that result. Now, I also want to style this pretty nicely, so we'll just use our theme.of context.texttheme.headline.medium. And that's all good. Okay, so let's just make sure everything we've done is working. We'll go back here. Oh, there's hello world, because we probably didn't actually, oh, we did do it. Maybe we did it work. Also, I want to, let's actually center our help text. So kind of is right in the middle. So either we just got really lucky or there's an error here. Let me try refreshing, because in all my experimentation, it was pretty rare to actually get. All right, well, let's see. So I was a little bit worried that I messed something up. I reviewed the code, I refreshed a couple more times, and yeah, there's one that came back that isn't successful, which is kind of what we expect. If this doesn't quite make sense yet, we're going to add some stuff to actually make this all feel like a complete project. So back in our hello text, aside from just showing the text, let's actually show a bit of a reasoning, where this came from, all that kind of stuff. So we'll start by let's just have some padding here. And we'll just do a const of edge insets and just do 16.0. And its child, we will put a rich text. So rich text is a really fun, if you haven't used it before, it allows you to kind of have different text styles and stuff within one paragraph of text. So in order to do this, though, we actually first do text, and we're going to put a text span. And this text span, we're going to put all of our default styling. So in this case, it's text style, colors dot, and we'll make it black, but not full black. And we'll give it a font size of 16. And we can const this part of it at least. Then what we do inside the text span still is give it some children. And here we're going to have a few different text spans. So we'll start with a text span that just says the word from with the space. Then we're going to have another text span. And this is where we start to get some dynamic stuff. So we'll give its text. Oops, I realize we have to say text this. Then text. We're going to use the article.title. So this is essentially going to join from in the article.title. So we do need like a space after this, or those would get joined together. And then what's cool with this is we can style this one a little bit differently. So it will still use that style, but we can override certain parts of it. And in this case, let's just override the decoration, text style decoration, text decoration dot underline. So if I save this and we come back, we actually see what article it's from. Now, the reason I'm making this something that has an underline is we're going to allow this to be clickable. So something else we can do in a text span is we can actually add a recognizer. So I can go tap gesture recognizer and then just go dot dot on tap. So we're like instantiating this, then we're adding like an on tap event to it. And this syntax looks a little bit funny. And the first time I saw it, I was like, it's weird. And there's definitely other ways you could do it, but this works totally fine. And here we're just going to call launch URL string, which we might just have to import manually. It's not recognizing it. But this is one of the packages we installed, the URL launcher. So here we can do this, and we're going to launch article.url. Okay, so if I save this, we should be able to click this, and it will actually open that article that we grabbed this from. Okay, so that's all nice. What else can we do, though? We have a thumbnail to work with. So this is where I guess that was, sorry, I went over quickly. Launch URL string, URL launcher. That's one package we installed. Another package we installed was cached network image. I like using this because it deals with caching it for you. So we can do cached network image right here. Now, again, I'm having troubles with my importing, which is frustrating, but I won't, usually I'll just restart my VS Code when that happens, but it's fine. We'll just import it manually. And here we want to pass in image URL, and here we would use article dot, our thumbnail. Now the problem is this could be null, so we actually want to wrap this in, and if article dot thumbnail does not equal null, then we will do this. And this works just like the other image, asset image and stuff. We can still give it a width, and I'm just going to width of like 100. And we can also give it a height of 100. And we can do fit box fit dot contain. And now we should actually have a thumbnail about that article. You saw it kind of has a nice fade in animation too when it's loading. It's a nice little package. Okay, so we're getting that back. Now, it would be nice to kind of like show the user, hey, this was a success and this wasn't. So what we can do is also make a variable called success. And we can basically say success equals result equaling our target value. And then we can actually style our text down here. Where did we do this? Right here. So we have headline medium, but we can actually do .copy width on this. So we'll still take all the normal parameters of our headline medium, and we can change its color. And its color, if it's success, maybe we use colors .green or colors .red if it wasn't a success. So now we'll actually see it's red in this case. Let's hook up this button now. So something else we can do in riverpod, we'll go to our hello screen. We will convert this into a consumer widget so that we have access to our providers in here. And we will go and do widget ref. So in our on press that we are saving for later, we can actually go ref.invalidate and pass in our hello provider. And this will essentially invalidate it, mean marking it as stale. And because something is still watching it, it will automatically refresh it. So now if I actually click this, we'll actually see a new one came. And look, that first click worked. It came back, hello world. Now, how can we prove? Now I could go to this article and search in here. The problem is I'm not sure if this is the same thing as the extract. So let's give our users a way to actually check. And when I say our users, I mean, no one is ever going to use this app. If you find this useful and you're going on it every day, let me know, because that would be awesome. But let's do this in the hello container, in hello text. what we can do is we can wrap our text in a widget, and we'll make it an inkwell. And we'll do an on tap here. So when we tap it, we want to, do something. So just wrapping an inkwell is a nice, with the on tap, allows us to get the little, look, the hover effect, so people know kind of they can click. But what do we want to do in here? Well, we're just going to do this really simply by showing a dialog, and context, we will go like this. And here we're going to return just the built-in material alert dialog. And we can pass some parameters here. So for instance, the title is going to be a text of article excerpt, or extract as they call it. Then its content, we'll just do text of the article.extract. And we'll give it some buttons, or just one button really, just a close button. So we'll just do a text button. And on pressed, we'll do something. And as child, will just be text saying close. Okay. And let's make this constant. And here we just do navigator.ofContext.pop, which will close that from the stack. So now, if we actually click this, we'll see, okay. So let's figure this out if it's actually working. So hello world we're looking for. So we do see, if we go in order, there's our E. There's definitely an H somewhere in here. There's like an H. There's a bunch. Those are I's actually, but there's definitely L's. There's an O. Anyways, you can, try it on your own and make sure their logic is sound. But it does seem to be working. Versus maybe if we find out one that doesn't work, there we go. Heo world. So let's oops, I clicked the wrong thing. I meant to click this. So this makes more sense. Like, what are we missing? For instance, there's no L's. So let's find out why. Well, there's just no L in here at all. So this is working. So there we go. We have our Hello World application, and it's an Hello World that obviously is over-engineered and doesn't even work half the time because some Wikipedia articles do not give you back something that says Hello World. All right, I hope you enjoyed this stream. It was a lot of fun to make, doing something kind of dumb, but I think also pretty educational. I hope you had a good time, and let me know in the comments if there's anything else, any ideas that you have to over-engineer this even further, as I'm always down to take Flutter and Dart to the limit. See you in the next one.